It sounds like a song. Those are just voicings. Today I want to talk about the 5 chord going to 1 using flat 9 on the dominant and natural 13. This is a great sound, and I've got a wonderful little way to find that or get to it based easily on your knowledge of the jazz voicings or what goes there. So by now I hope that you know what 9 is. How do you find 9? Whole step above the root. How do you find 7? Whole step below. So what's the 7th of a C7? B flat. What is 7 on a G7? F. What's 9 on a G7? A. What is 9 on a C7? D. So I'm quizzing you like I quiz my students. I'll go through and do that, and then they get that down so they can find it quick. So you can play the guide tones. If you're comping, that helps you think quickly. If I was playing from C7 and I'm going to land on an F, I can have the guide tones, and I need 9. I want 9. So 9 is D. There it is. I can have 13, that's A, and you just get good at those. That helps you get playing and not just playing the jazz voicing, which is, of course, very successful and always nice. But today, I want to add to that jazz voicing, and this is something that it comes from the jazz Ionian mode, or some people might say it comes from the harmonic minor mode. But either way, it's really cool. So we're going to talk about what I call the bebop triad. This is a characteristic sound, and it's a triad that occurs in the diatonic system, which is really wonderful, and it enhances everything you do. We're going to keep it to the 5 chord today and go back to the idea of 5 to 1. So let's say that my song has a G7 going to C major, and we talked in the last video, well, I'm going to play a jazz voicing and go right to C. And we could do jazz voicing on the C and go this way. But what about that bebop triad? How will I find that? There's several ways to go. If you're very comfortable with theory, your thought might be Phrygian. Okay, the Phrygian mode in C is E, and it's based on Spanish Phrygian, so that'll give you an E triad. Okay, if you think a different way, then you might say, okay, well, I'm in the key of C, this is 5-1, and the relative minor is A minor, and the 5 chord of A minor is E. You can get to it that way. Okay, the other way you could get to it is say, okay, my 5 chord is G, and my 13 on the 5 chord is E, so I play an E triad on my G7, and that's another way you can get to it. So that's 3 ways. There's always different ways to think about things. There's no right way or wrong way. The one you want to pick is the one you can get that triad quick. You want that triad to be part of you as soon as possible, so then you can make those decisions, because sometimes you're going to want it, sometimes you won't. But when you do want it, it's got to be there. So that would be an E triad, and I'm going to be doing some doubling today because it sounds amazing, and I want to point that out. A lot of people will say, don't double your notes, it's a waste of notes. But there's a lot of great musicians, and I'm not going to name the ones I've met, and I'm not going to name the ones that do this. I'm just going to tell you that there are rules, and they're meant to be broken. And this doubling idea can be really fat and thick. So this is a really thick sounding chord. And that note in there that we're going to check out on the overhead, you can see what's happening here. This is my G7. And I'm doubling the B and the E. So that means 2 notes are being doubled. And I'm good with that because this sounds really thick. Now I can make it even more thick, and I could put the 9 in and just play a straight jazz voicing in the left hand and put that first inversion bebop triad in the right hand. Now when you're comping, the nice thing is you could be playing your G7 and resolve. Now I resolved this way to my C major. I'm not going to get too involved in what my resolution points are, but I'm doing it slow enough so that you can take them and have them for yourself. We're focused on hieroglyphics. If this chord symbol says G7 flat 9, it doesn't always mean that sharp 9 and flat 13, sharp 11, flat 13, flat 5, all of those things. It doesn't mean those are all part of it. It doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily go to a minor chord. It might just mean they want that flat 9 in there because it's a great color. So we're going to treat this like what we do when we go to 5-1, just like the other situations, so you can get comfortable with it. So let's go to another one. How about D7? So what is the flat 9? The flat 9 is the third of your triad. Let's take a look overhead so I don't totally confuse you. There's the third of my triad that I've added, my bebop triad, and that's the flat 9 on the D. So here's natural 13, flat 9, third of the chord. I'm going to do these root positions so you can clearly see what's the bebop triad. Okay, so let's say that I'm playing a jazz tune and the chord is C7 and it goes to F. And it doesn't say C7 flat 9, it says C7. And so I'm going to put flat 9 in. Why? Because I want to. Notice how I keep saying that. That's the part that jazz musicians won't tell you. Well, man, you got to hear it. Well, you got to think it through. Well, you got to play in 12 keys. Well, you got to play with a lot of people. Well, you got to know what you're doing. It's a very simple answer. It's because you want it or you don't. But if you don't know the rules that work, then you can't make those decisions, and you're at the mercy of people who, like I just described, who I've met myself. And that's just not, cool. We want to always be giving and sharing, so I am. What we're taking is this C7, and we're going to put flat 9 in, so we need our bebop triad. Now, just so that you can get your mindset together, I won't confuse you with the different ways of going. I'm going to take the bebop triad and build it off of my 13th every time, because if you know your jazz voicings, that's a great fix. You can't get hit, you can't lose. So if I have a C7, my 13 on that is an A. That means I need an A triad, and that will give me 13 and 3 and flat 9. And that's right there. Now I can drop that a half step and get to my F, and I'm doubling some things, so we want to remember I could leave the A out of there. And you can bring this thing down to your left hand, look at this, and get real tight with your voicings. I'm going to invert that A triad down. That's starting to get some really good diminished color there. So it says C7, and that's what I'm doing because I want the flat 9 in there. No other reason. I just want that in there. Now, if you're playing bebop, they always want it in there. So that's something to... Bebop's a different thing. That's like playing Bach. There's rules that can't be broken or you're not playing bebop. So for playing jazz and improvising, I'm trying to help you find your personality, and a lot of this stems from or comes from bebop, and we need that art form to get where we are now, but we don't want to stay in it because we're trying to broaden our horizons. So, but there are some really good videos up here somewhere, I'm sure, on bebop that will help you, if that's the way you want to go. So this is a triad I just went up gently with. And there's just a million ways of resolving that. So then let's pick another one. How about, and we're not going by the circle, we're just getting these so you can learn them. You know, what about an E flat 7? The 13, our jazz voicing for E flat 7 and we have this is one of the ways that we can play that. We have this is another way. So we know now our 13 is C, and that's going to give us a C triad. And that means that our flat 9 is E. Notice I'm taking the 3 notes in the right hand. So this is how you can develop your voicing style. Play with these triads, play with these chords, play with these voicings, and put the different notes in each hand and discover yourself what's out there. If you listen to a lot of jazz and you listen to other players live, you're going to be able to decide, I like those, I want those, I don't need those. It becomes a very personal thing for you, and you always know you're right and you're confident in your playing because you can't make bad choices when you go by the rules. So if 5 goes to 1, you win. You want 9 and 13, and if 5 is going to 1, you could say, well, I want flat 9, and that would give you that triad. So the idea then is to transpose this or get this into the other keys, learn all the bebop triads so that you can apply them to other chords in the diatonic system, but especially to your 5 chord for your resolutions. And it won't matter, just for the sake of discussion now, what your 2 chord was. So you could go 2, 5, 1, and that 5 chord can still have the flat 9, and it'll sound great. So this is something to study. Let's do another one. Let's take our A7. And you could play A7 this way depending on the group you're in. You could play this, and you could play this. Depends on what band you're in or what style. But we talked about already in the other example that you want 9 and 13. So here's 9 and 13, 3 and 7. There's my A7. Doing that with this hand, and then I'm looking for 13, right? Here is my major triad I'm looking for. This is the name of the bebop triad I want. And I can invert that, and this is going to resolve to D major. So I went up to 13. I'm trying to keep, as always, so you can see my hand. Could go to 5. So this is arpeggiating. Great voicing, a thick voicing. Lots of modern jazz guys will use this one. And you hear that and think, wow, why did he play that? What is that for? when do I use that? And it's when you want to, provided it's 5 chord to 1. So notice how I keep drilling the rhythm, the harmony rule down. That's how I learned these. In fact, in one situation, like at the beginning, I said, okay, I love this chord so much that that's going to be my A7 voicing for the rest of my life. I'm not even going to play it. I don't care. I'm not even going to play a different type of voicing. So if I see A7 going to D, I'm just going to do that. And I did that with if I see G7, I'm just going to do that. If I see C7, I'm just going to play that for the rest of my life. And that attitude, that approach got me really fixed and strong in those voicings. So as I was reading chord changes or playing tunes, I'd see them, boom, that was like boom, then to 1, boom, and I just had them. And you can do that same thing. Then when you get comfortable with the sound, the feel, and the theory, then you start thinking, yeah, I got this, so now I'm going to invert that triad. And then you can start adding more in. If you do that with every one of your voicings that you like, you'll build an amazing amount of sounds that you can move through and play through. And just be content to put rules on yourself, limitations. That's how I did it. And I found out soon, within months, I had like tons of ways of playing through chord changes, and just because I would make those limitations. So again, you go through your fake books, find all the 5-1 resolutions, and use like a flashcard approach. So this thing says D7 to G. So I need a D7 jazz voicing with a B triad in my right hand. And then it goes to G. Now you can get more involved by saying, let me try and harmonize the melody in those situations. So let's say the melody is an F sharp and it resolves to an A. So you would do this. And now you want to go to your G this way, or this way, or this way. You decide. Those were all different ways of playing a nice full G, depending on whether you have a bass player or not. But the triad idea stayed the same because I have my flat 9 and I have my 13 and the melody is here. So I've totally covered the thing for anybody playing and anybody listening. I hope this clears things up for you, and I hope it gives you another option, another alternative to playing 5 chords, and also getting rid of some of maybe the mystery or the confusion about chord symbols. So when next time you see a D7, put flat 9 in, put that bebop triad in with your jazz voicing, and if it goes to G, you win. Or whatever the chord might be, A7, F sharp 7, find those bebop triads, find that triad built on the 13th, and you can't lose. Watch the video again, rewind it, check it out. If it doesn't do it for you, if I've caused more confusion, email me, okay? As long as I'm still here and I'm still putting videos up, I'll answer the question as fast as possible, free of charge. So for now, that's our next example on dominant chords, and we'll come back and hit some of these again from other angles with some chord scales. I'm only talking about voicings right now, so we keep our head clear. That's always a good thing. Keep yours clear. I'll work on mine. See you next time.